Samantha is just an amazing style icon and sort of fashion expert. She was hailed as the next Anna Wintour by New York Daily News. So maybe
sort of a major moment.
Yeah, I mean, tell us how you kind of felt to get that comparison and what it meant to you.
I don't really know what to say other than it was a really interesting piece that was done. It was by a group. They're called Moms in the City, and the great part about it was, in addition to being compared to Anna, it was in a piece that was sort of larger about being a mother and working. So it was really flattering because it was sort of talking about two things that I'm really, really passionate about. You know, I sort of consider them both like my children in different ways, my job and my daughter. So it was very, very flattering, needless to say. And I actually worked at Vogue, so to sort of have that additional aspect sort of in my back pocket to really understand what that comparison actually means was quite flattering.
Tell us about sort of what your job entails, a day in the life of Samantha Yanks.
Well, as I said, I'm a mother, so I wake up in the morning. I have a daughter who is turning 4 in April, so very shortly. So family sort of comes first in the morning. My day, as I think most editors will say, is never really quite predictable, so we sort of have this very stable, consistent morning. Spend the morning with my daughter, I drop her off at school, and then sort of like all of the insanity begins. You know, sort of being at the helm of 2 magazines, even more so probably than some other editors, I really never know what's coming. In the middle of this week, when the focus was New York Fashion Week, obviously, I had something that pulled me out to the Hamptons yesterday, so as much as I didn't want to miss some shows, you know, duty calls in different ways. So, you know, as with most other editors, there's usually a breakfast, there's usually a cocktail, there's usually a lunch, and I have 2 teams at work that work on both magazines, so sort of depending on what time of year we're talking about, you know, obviously makes the day different, but I'm in New York most of the year and, you know, doing my job, and then I'm in the Hamptons for the summer overseeing that magazine, so it involves a lot of events and a lot of meetings, and all in all, great and really wonderful that it isn't so predictable.
Having a role at both Gotham and Hamptons, you're sort of the barometer on maybe the hot spots for Fashion Week, and you know, kind of the best gauge of what the best trends are in the tents. So maybe you want to tell us about some of the spots that you think were really hot this week, and what we can sort of hope to consider a good restaurant or a great club in New York for the next few months.
So we had the dinner at one of my favorite spots, Abe and Arthur's, which was, you know, absolutely fantastic. Tomorrow night I'm going to the opening of Southern Hospitality, so that'll be great. And then we were going to talk about trends during Fashion Week. You know, quite honestly, and I'm not trying to not be honest, I didn't think there was anything that was truly outstanding that was ugly. Most of the trends that we saw were seemingly very retail driven, but done very well. Lots of lace, lots of 70s, amazing outerwear from furs to amazingly beautiful black puffer jackets everywhere, lots of Victorian moments, lots of great trips to foreign continents. This morning I got to wake up and I went to Asia with Ralph Lauren, you know, in Mongolia with Oscar de la Renta. So really, really beautiful things. The outstanding pieces, I thought, the fur was spectacular. So for those who are anti-fur, obviously respecting that opinion, probably a very difficult season for you. Just amazing vests. I love sort of the elongated vest that was happening. Yeah, just that 70s palette that we sort of saw beginning with Marc Jacobs last season. He's always so directional. It's no great surprise that it sort of caught on a little bit later with a lot of other designers, but the 1970s were clearly so prominent, from the color palette, like, you know, those pumpkins and burnt oranges and mustard yellows to just great denim. And
why do you think that the 70s are back this season?
You know, I think that you tend to see a lot during New York Fashion Week that sort of reverts back historically. I think Americans are just very nostalgic and in actually a very positive way. So every season in New York, you always see one era emerge and become really prominent. some seasons it was the 50s when you're sort of with this obsession with like this Mad Men-esque moment, and then 60s sort of Audrey Hepburn, Lady Girl, and this season everyone just touched on the 70s. I really do think a lot of it had to do with Marc Jacobs last season.
And another thing we're seeing, leopard.
Lots of leopard. You know, I think it's great in touches, small touches. And yeah, it's continuing. I think it's one of those patterns that has sort of become the new neutral. It's easy to wear in doses. You get a little bit of attention, and if you get too much from it, you're probably doing it wrong.
You know, so we have this wonderful group of bloggers here in the room.
Yeah.
Some new, some veterans. I guess maybe we can sort of ask you, what does it take to, A, have a successful journalism career? And then B, maybe somebody who's a veteran blogger and has some success, what does it take to stay cutting edge?
I think you have to sort of envision your dream job and really imagine what it must have taken that person to get there, the support that they needed, and then become that support for someone else. Because I think until you go through that, and I really have to say I had the luxury of working very hard luxury to work at two very top tier magazines. You really see what that hard work is. I worked at Vogue, and as I said before, and I worked at Oprah. So you're really talking about leaders, and particularly women, who are at the top of their game. So you really see the team behind them and what it takes. So I think you sort of have to become that person and give that support to someone else. You know, I think bloggers have this amazing knack to be able to build their own brand. And that is a very, very different space than when I first began my career. And it's fantastic to be able to have that platform now. That really, when I started, you were only part of, you know, a singular brand. You weren't really your own. And now everyone's becoming their own brand. And then it's what's the value of your brand that you can then give to sort of a larger place.
Sure. What role has social media played in the Gotham and Hamptons world?
Huge. I mean, I think huge for companies in general. I can speak probably, you know, more about what it's done for magazines. Obviously, it's just an amazing outlet. As I was just saying before, it's really a supplement. I mean, it's not something that should be viewed as threatening to what the actual product is. You know, I think in the beginning of the advent of social media, people were worried if it was going to compete with what the, you know, base product was, whether it's newspapers or magazines. But if you look at it in the way I think that it should be viewed, it's really an additional perk. I mean, when you're creating magazine content, there's no way to get that all into the print format. There never has been. And at every point, it always felt sort of like this brutal cut, you know, things that people that you were interviewing had to say, or experiences that you had on set, or what stylists said, the really personal aspect of it, you were always sort of butchering it and cutting it down to a space that could fit, and now you don't have to do that any longer. So for us at Gotham and at Hamptons, it's fantastic. I mean, we do backstage, you know, we do video of all of our photo shoots. We put them up online. We invite stylists to talk about it. We actually try to bring people on board in those settings that are really comfortable with social media. You know, when you have a stylist who is really closed off and doesn't want to talk about what it's like to be on set with Anne Hathaway, it's not really as fun any longer. And we encourage sort of the excess. So whether it's video footage or whether it's tweeting from the event, you just get all of these amazing pieces that you never got before. Like, we shot Daniel Radcliffe the other day, and now we get to talk about in the issue what's on Daniel Radcliffe's iPod playlist. I mean, you probably wouldn't have been able to fit that into print anymore, but all these little extras, the accessories from the shoot, you get to have a home for now.
What's on Daniel Radcliffe's iPod?
lots of Beatles.
Really? Okay.
Fantastic guy. He's moving to New York, so a very exciting cover, for Gotham, and just an all in all, one of the most fantastic people I've ever worked with.
How are you selecting sort of who is cover worthy?
Well, first for Gotham, everyone needs to have some sort of a New York angle. So for Daniel, it's super exciting. He's coming to Broadway
Right.
for, sort of not overcoming, but moving on from that Harry Potter role. And very exciting for New York, I think, and he's moving here, so that's great. And Julianne Moore, just a quintessential New Yorker, and our brand really spans the age gap. So I think it's really fun to have a Daniel Radcliffe who's, just turned 21, and Julianne Moore who's a bit of a mature woman with a different story to tell, a husband and children, lives in Brooklyn. Just a nice range.
I'll ask you to sort of wrap it up before we open up for questions. Some of your fall 2011 predictions.
I think it's sort of what we were talking about before. I think we'll see lots of fur come fall.
Okay.
I think you're going to definitely get this sort of like boho vibe. But then also there was a lot of structure this week, a lot of man tailoring, and I think what was so great about this week is I think a lot of the bigger designers really hit it out of the park, like Oscar and Ralph and Donna Karan and Calvin, really, and Michael Kors celebrating his 30th anniversary, which is just so amazingly exciting, really delivered collections that really felt like big designer collections.
I think we'll open up to questions, Ashley, if that's...
You had mentioned that Marc Jacobs kind of influenced a lot of the trends that you've seen some of the shows this season.
Right.
Have you seen any designs that may influence next season's shows?
I think the biggest trend that will probably emerge that'll carry on is a very, very fine attention to outerwear. I know I personally have probably a larger coat closet than I have a actual closet. And so I get 2 closets in my apartment. And the attention to that, I think it's retail friendly. People really sort of think of their topper as the first thing that presents itself to people when you meet them in the fall and the winter. I think a lot of the attention there is going to carry on probably for a while.
Ashley?
Is there somebody that you've always wanted to interview that you haven't yet?
That's a really good question also. When I became editor of Gotham, I'd been working at our company for close to 5 years. And I have a crazy, crazy obsession with Alicia Keys. And she was my first cover as an editor. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to get the shoot. And, it was the dream cover. She sang Empire State of Mind at our shoot, and June Ambrose styled it, and it was just that perfect team that you dream about. So I have to say I've had the perfect moment. Yeah, of course there are people on the wish list, and we'll get them, but,
What was the Alicia Keys interview like?
It was great. She is just that like quintessential New Yorker to me, and every piece, when you sort of dream about the scenario fell into place. She just, we had a big event with her to celebrate the cover, and it was the event that she came out sort of publicly with Swiss Beats, and like 2 days later, I think it was, she announced she was pregnant. So aside from the get, which is what every editor is after, and the team, which also everyone is after, it was just from beginning to end. Events are a really large component of our publications. So from beginning to end, it was just all there, and it happens, once in every 50, and when it hits, it just hits. So it was, from beginning to end, fantastic.